Welcome to the Cyber Sangha podcast. Cyber Sangha is a program of free live broadcasts, launched in 2009 by renowned teacher and author Tenzin Wangyal Rinpoche. Join us as we draw on ancient Tibetan wisdom to discover how to connect with our best self and live to our highest potential. The following conversation, Awareness as Medicine, the best cure for burnout is here within us, happened on December 19th, 2023, as a science and spirituality dialogue with researcher and Buddhist teacher Nikki Mirghafori, psychology professor and meditation instructor Paul Condon, and host Alejandro Chaoul. This was part of a year-long series on embracing life with wisdom and compassion. This content is for informational purposes only. Listeners should consult medical professionals for any physical or mental health concerns. Please use headphones and do not meditate while driving or operating machinery.
Welcome, everyone. So glad to be here again. My name is Alejandro Chaoul. I'm a student of Tenzin Wangyal Rinpoche for exactly 30 years this year. And it's delightful to be here at Cyber Sangha. I've been organizing these dialogues between science and spirituality for over 2 years. We've been doing it every month. Now we started every 2 months. And I'm delighted to have with me today Dr. Nikki Mirghafori and Dr. Paul Condon. And we're going to talk about this topic of awareness as medicine. The best cure for burnout is here with us. And another way in terms of the whole topics that we're doing, from the full moon practices, Rinpoche's talks, it's kind of embracing exhaustion and bringing that sense of awareness. And so let me tell you a little bit about Nikki and Paul. So Nikki, who actually I met last year or the year before at a conference on the future of American Buddhism, where we were both presenting. Her background is on AI, yes, an artificial intelligence. She's a scientist and internationally recognized Buddhist teacher. So she has the AI and the Buddhism, and she serves as a stewarding teacher at Spirit Rock Meditation Center. Many of you may know that center, where she also serves on the board of directors and the Dharma teacher at Inside Meditation Center in Redwood City, California, another center you may know. She teaches with clarity and warmth on topics of mindful leadership to cultivating kindness, with a rare expertise on mindfulness of death. We've been talking about that topic for a while, Nikki, to be doing some on that. And she's widely published in AI and has led international collaborations as a Berkeley academic and as a biotechnology startups. She's of Persian heritage. She was trying to teach me how to pronounce her last name, and I tried my best. And she's an advocate for wisdom and compassion in daily life, as well as for ethical AI, which is so important as AI grows. So that Buddhist component and ethical component is so important. So welcome, Nikki. Welcome, Nikki. And Paul, we actually have not met him in person, but I've met him in these cyberspaces. We're both also Mind and Life fellows, and are part of some of the committees looking at grants. And Paul is an associate professor of psychology at Southern Oregon University. He has served as a visiting lecturer for the Center of Buddhist Studies at Rangchung Yeshe Institute in Kathmandu, that many of you may have visited in Nepal. He's also, as I mentioned, a fellow of the Mind and Life Institute. And his research examines the relational basis of empathy, compassion, well-being, and prosocial action, and the influence of compassion and mindfulness training on those capacities. His writing and teaching also explores the use of diverse scientific theories to interpret and inform meditation practices, and in dialogue with contemplative traditions to support training in compassion, mindfulness, and wisdom. He has collaborated with John Makransky to develop and teach sustainable compassion training, which is a system of meditation adapted from the Tibetan Nyingma and Kagyu traditions for multi-faith and secular applications. Welcome, welcome, Paul. So we always, as we were talking before we came live, we all of us come from different pathways, how we get here. And Nikki, I'll start with you, asking you, and particularly kind of being an AI and this. We haven't had any of our speakers in that. We did have a speaker in VR. So I guess that's the closest in terms of that kind of technology. But if you can bring us a little bit into your world.
Yeah, thank you, Ale. Thank you so much for the invitation and the kind introduction. And the question as well. So I'll tell you a bit of my origin story, which actually does have to do with exhaustion and burnout. So I think I'll make it relevant. I'll look through it. I'll look at the story through this particular lens. So so this is about 20 some years ago, and it's after I had finished my PhD at Berkeley and in AI, and I was working at a startup doing research in speaker recognition, which nowadays people use all the time, Siri, and so that was what the research I was doing. Anyway, and I started to feel exhausted, just wiped out, really, really tired. Um, and it was clear that something was going on physically, and none of the doctors could really figure out what was happening with my body. It felt like mononucleosis, which is just exhausting. I was ashen faced. I took a brief leave of absence, came back. I was still trying to work full time, and just I couldn't, and no one could figure it out. So anyway, um, so one of my friends at the time suggested that I try a silent meditation retreat. Uh, Hopefully that would, it wouldn't cure my health issue or whatever was going on. But it might support me. So this dear friend actually took me to actually to one day meditation. One night at Insight Meditation Center in Redwood City with Gail Fronsdal, who's now a teacher and a friend, and I'm teaching at the Insight Meditation Center now. And then she took me to Spirit Rock for a day long, for a full day of just learning meditation. And my mind had been more quiet than it had ever been in my life at the end of that day. And I was curious. And then I think a few weeks after that, I did my first 10-day meditation retreat. And it was amazing. My mind, my heart opened to spaces I didn't even know existed. And I was completely hooked on this practice. And it did help my health, actually. But then, as an asterisk, 10 years later, it was diagnosed to be Lyme disease because 20 some years ago, there was a very little known about Lyme disease. But somehow, through meditation and the various things at the time, my body immune system figured out how to handle, how to be with it. And then it came back. But anyway, so that was my introduction. And then I was fascinated by this practice and by meditation. I didn't so much care at first about Buddhism, but I went to the Dharma talks. I kept listening more and more, and the Dharma talks were pointing to the experiences I was having. And anyway, long story short, I practiced more and more and more deeply and longer silent meditations, and was invited to teach, and became a teacher in the Theravada tradition. So that's a brief origin story, but it was really the exhaustion and the burnout from the illness.
Mm. Thank you, Nikki, and thank you for opening up into your personal story. Paul, do you want to take us to your world?
Yeah. First, I also wanted to say thank you, Ale and Nikki, for being here. Nikki and I got a chance to meet at a conference earlier this year for the first time and had a lot of fun conversations. So it's really nice to get to intersect here again with you and continue the dialogue. So I got into this this world of meditation and Buddhism and psychology when I was an undergrad student, and I was studying psychology at the time. And I was lucky to be able to take some classes where the professors were teaching on themes that allowed me to explore further this intersection of contemplative traditions and theories from psychology that would help to relate to contemplative experience and contemplative traditions. One of the classes that I took, when we started the class, the professor had us write down on a note card the inner voice that we wish we didn't have to hear throughout the day. And at the time, I was somewhat, I was apprehensive about this process. I didn't know anybody else in the class. Everybody seemed very confident and put together and attractive. And so it was a kind of awkward vibe going into the class. But we did the exercise, and then we handed them in, and he read out our note cards with our inner voices aloud to the class in an anonymous way. And we got to hear about all the struggles that each of us are carrying in a kind of hidden way that we just don't see each other carrying. And it was pretty powerful. It was kind of in that moment we no longer felt so separate from each other, but actually were united in sharing our various difficulties as young adults who were trying to get established, with some independence in our lives and figure out the next steps in our lives. So that was a pretty powerful experience for me in terms of feeling more connected to a group of, people who I thought were strangers. And in that class, we then explored the ideas from attachment theory, which is a perspective that our ways of being in relationship and in connection with each other and the world, our understanding of ourselves, are shaped by early experiences as children. So our ways of knowing, of being in relationship, get imprinted into us early on. And then that shapes how we see the world and how we come to know ourselves and other people. And that lens was pretty powerful. I felt like of all the different ideas I had been learning about in psychology, that was one that really seemed to have a lot of ability to explain a wide range of human behaviors and significant things in terms of relationships, and also our capacity for things like empathy and compassion and curiosity and confidence to explore the world, ability to regulate our emotions. So that perspective was pretty influential and stuck with me for a while. Later on, that was when I was an undergrad. Later on, I then became a graduate student, and I was getting a PhD in social psychology, and I was interested in studying how our social interactions are shaped by emotions. And eventually I learned about the Mind and Life Institute and participated in some of their summer research programs and got to meet a number of scientists and philosophers and Buddhist studies scholars who were thinking really deeply and hard about how meditation could be studied scientifically with rigor and with the best kinds of scientific practices, and also with an eye towards history and culture and how all these things also impact the transformation of contemplative practice. So I was really hooked by that kind of like interdisciplinary thinking. It was the most invigorating and exciting academic environment that I got to participate at that early time. And this was about maybe 13, 15 years ago when I was a grad student. So I started studying meditation as a student in psychology, as a scientist. And I really enjoyed that work, and it was really meaningful. But I think in terms of the theme of this panel here today, in terms of burnout, I could really feel that coming, being embedded in the academic system and the scientific world. And it's very competitive, and there's a constant push to always be working and striving for the next kind of project or publication or opportunity, and it felt like a kind of endless cycle. And so I could feel experiences of exhaustion and burnout happening as a young grad student and postdoc. And it sort of pushed me more towards wanting to spend more time in practice, in meditation practice, and pursuing opportunities for retreats, and letting that experience of being in retreat inform my thinking more so than just striving for more and more kinds of academic work. And I think, like, as Nikki was describing, I could feel the kind of power of healing and restoration and joy that would come from allowing the mind to be at rest in retreat, and to become increasingly confident that there are qualities of ease and joy and well-being that come from allowing the mind to rest. And I've been fortunate to then sort of find my way from being a young scientist into now a career where I'm able to continue to pursue these ideas and have some support to be able to do that. So I think I'll pause there and see sort of what comes next.
Wonderful. Thank you, Paul. I actually love that exercise that your teacher mentioned or professor on that inner voice that we don't want to hear, and able to hear, I mean, confidentially or at least anonymous, and how it got you to understand. I mean, in a way, as we say, right, we all suffer, and that is a way of expanding our sense of compassion. I also like what you said, kind of the kind of how practice and how that you can bring into daily life, and that's where I want to go next. I even feel that even though in the scientific realm, when we write, we're writing from that platform. A lot of times it's from our own experience too, right? And I can, for me, for example, my books on Tibetan yoga and so forth, it's like I feel I call sometimes writing from the mat, right? So from the experience. So let me turn to Nikki again, and Nikki, what I wanted to ask, I mean, so kind of told us how kind of you got to notice how these practices were useful for you, and then you're still an AI scientist, but you're also a well-known teacher of Buddhist practices, particularly insight and mindfulness and so forth. What, if so someone comes, if you would do a retreat where it is about, embracing exhaustion and burnout, what would you recommend? How would you do something for this audience? I mean, and I know I'll later ask you for an actual meditation, but for now, kind of talk us through a little bit of what your thoughts would be of what to do.
Yeah, thank you, Ali. I love this question. And it's so relevant because I just taught a week-long retreat last week. And I just came back on Saturday. Yes, I came back on Saturday. Um, and the theme of the retreat was practicing peace, peace internally, peace externally, with an appreciation that at this time of the year, towards the end of the year, during the holiday season, yes, it's a cheerful time, and yet it's a very stressful time, um, for both, um, for a variety of reasons, what's happening in our lives as well as what's happening in the world, which can actually exacerbate and add to the sense of stress and not being able to cope, the sense of exhaustion. And actually, I looked up a formal definition of burnout, which I want to share because I think it really helps guide the conversation. So, burnout is a state of emotional, mental, and often physical exhaustion brought on by prolonged and or repeated stress. We know that, but it's kind of nice to hear. It's characterized by feelings of overwhelm, emotional drain, and reduced personal accomplishments. Burnout can lead to diminished interest and motivation, especially in one's job or daily activities, and may have significant implications for mental and physical health. So, with that informing this conversation and the answer I will give to your question, so what I recommend to folks, how I like to guide the folks coming into a retreat, or if they don't want to do a self retreat, or I'll talk about my own self when I feel exhausted and overwhelmed and burnt out, which does happen because I say yes to too many things sometimes. So I'll make it personal because I think that's important not to share from from a high horse, but actually, yeah, this is me. This is us. We all do this. We all get um, uh, exhausted and overwhelmed sometimes by saying yes to too many things. It's our human nature. But to answer your question first regarding what I would advise and how I've advised folks is first to rest, to really rest, turn towards, and that's the aspect of mindfulness, with awareness. And I also want to bring in mindfulness and as a practice, as a wisdom practice, together with compassion, because mindfulness um, and and awareness that is devoid of care, devoid of benevolence, devoid of compassion is not true wisdom, is not true mindfulness. So those two really, really have to go together. So the first thing is to really turn towards the exhaustion, towards the I can't, towards the mental, physical, emotional exhaustion with care, with care, as if we're holding a young child, a young baby, a little newborn in our arms. Really, that aspect, that attitude of the mind, as if we're holding ourselves like a little newborn who's just hurting. We don't know why. Perhaps the newborn is crying, but we're just holding. We're patient. We're so patient. We don't say, okay, stop crying now. We're done. Are we done yet? We want you to be done crying so we can go do X and Y. So we have emails to answer. Like, no, sweetheart, it's okay. You're hurt, darling. It's okay. It's all right. It's okay. Just holding little baby with plenty of patience, care, not going anywhere. And yet, in that metaphor, as you notice, there's both a sense of being held and holding. So there is this wisdom, there is this care of our inner wisdom that holds, that recognizes, yeah, I do have a lot of capacity. I have expansive capacity, and I am hurt right now. And I need to give this aspect of me all the love, all the attention, all the patience that that is needed to just be. So letting that really be the first and foremost step of holding ourselves with kindness and compassion. And another thing I want to point out in this metaphor and in this invitation is we often don't realize that we are pushing ourselves too hard, that we are overwhelmed. I mean, we might be answering, friends who say, "How are you?" Might say, "Oh, busy, busy, too busy." Busy. Sometimes you might say, "Oh, overwhelmed. I have way too many things on my plate." And yet we may not quite grok and or realize that, oh yeah, this is too much, sweetheart. This is too much, sweetheart. So that the acknowledgement, really the acknowledgement that, yeah, this is too much. I am exhausted. I am tired. Maybe I'll just go to bed at 8 p.m. tonight. Maybe that's what I need to. Yeah, I know there are emails waiting to be answered and work and friends expecting to hear back from me. But sweetheart, I love and care for you so much that I am going to take you to bed at 8 p.m. and you're going to rest and do nothing. And that's another thing I want to bring in. In our culture, there is such a celebration um, and really putting up on the pedestal, doing, accomplishing, being, and doing, not being. Um, becoming is the word I wanted to look for. Becoming that you, I trust folks have heard we've become human um, doings instead of human beings. So another way to work with this is to be a human being, just be, and without feeling bad about it, not feeling guilty, and completely, fully relishing just being and doing nothing, not even trying to, oh yeah, I need to read these books, or like nothing, just be, just be, feel the amazing miracle of being in this body, sensing the breath, sensing the body, sensing the exhaustion. And it's amazing, Ali, actually, when we turn towards the exhaustion, towards the pain, towards the physical pain, emotional pain, when we turn towards it and hold it with kindness and care, there is a sweetness that arises. It it's so beautiful and profound. There's a sweetness that arises from being fully present with what is, with care, instead of pushing it away. For example, if you're in pain or exhausted, if you try to push it away, or even sometimes doing something else, like I don't know, watching a movie, etc. Yes, that can be helpful. I don't want to diss that. That's sometimes vegging can be helpful as well. And yet there's a wholesomeness, there's a goodness when we turn towards what is and really give it space. I'll give one last metaphor, which I love to use, and I offered actually this past week, is imagine yourself as a cloth um, that is soaking in warm water, warm bath water. Just let yourself literally, or you know, figuratively, or even literally, let yourself soak in warm water. And this idea of soaking can be so nourishing to the mind that, again, there's nothing you have to do, sweetheart. There's nothing you have to do, honey. There's nothing you have to accomplish. To just be, just be, just being is good enough. You don't have to do anything to deserve love and care. Just be. That sense of compassion and care for oneself is really the first aid the, for for exhaustion and burnout. There's
Mm,
more to say, but I'll pause here. I think that's plenty.
so beautiful. I love it, and
Mm.
as Rinpoche many times says, this sense of embracing, but embracing with space, with light, with warmth. And there's a word in Spanish, but not, I'm from Argentina, but this one comes from Mexico, and it's a word that I love, and it's apapacho. And apapacho is kind of this embrace of and from the soul. And it's when you were talking, I mean, that's what came to mind, to heart. It was this, being embraced no matter what, right? That it's not because I'm your father, your mother, it's just because you're hurting and I'm here to hold you, And can we do that with ourselves when we are hurt and not say like, no, no, but I'm a PhD in whatever, and it's like, doesn't matter, right? We heard too, right? And so yeah,
Yeah. Apapacho.
beautiful.
I love that, Ali. Thank you. I'm going to remember that right there. Maybe I'll add
What?
one last thing to
Yeah.
what you said regarding that we do this for ourselves. Maybe one last thing I would say is yes, and I mentioned that I was sick and I was diagnosed with Lyme disease at some point. Apapacho, yeah, there it is. Thanks for putting in chat. I see it. Apapacho. Yeah, what a beautiful word. Apapacho, my new favorite word. Um, and it's interesting because my mind was so not used to exhaustion and burnout at the time. And I remember not getting it, really just not getting, like, what's wrong with you? Like, come on, you've got work to do. I didn't quite get what was happening. So this act of getting it, really getting that you are exhausted, you are burnt out, is so fundamental. Otherwise, we keep pouring salt over an already open wound.
Hmm.
So important. And I did that. plenty until I realized, oh, sweetheart, you're sick. This is hard. Anyone in this situation would be feeling the same way you are feeling. So that
Mm,
common humanity, bringing that can be very helpful.
thank you. Thank you. Paul, I was wondering, I mean, both in terms of, um, as you were hearing Nikki, what comes to mind, but also from both the psychology that you've learned, but even if you want to bring also, I mean, you've been in the Ranjung Yeshe Institute in Kathmandu, and such a different culture, right? And how did you see both for yourself and the people around you? How did that work? And maybe even if you want to bring any science of some of the research. So the floor is yours.
Yeah, thank you. Well, in listening to Nikki's descriptions of the sort of like creating I would call it creating a holding environment, which is a concept that comes out of developmental psychology. And I think so many of the somatic practices and contemplative practices that are sort of taking hold in Western culture, one reason why they're so helpful is they're creating a kind of holding environment, a sense of spaciousness or safety in which we can become more aware of our patterns of mind or our emotional states, or even the way that we engage with the way that our mind sort of hooks into and engages with the various activities that our world is sort of constantly pulling at us to do. So experiencing a holding environment in which we're no longer so tightly identified with our thoughts and our emotions and even our sort of stories or narratives about ourselves, so that we can see them with some more spaciousness or qualities of warmth and also more intimacy. So not dismissing our thoughts and emotions and feelings, but seeing them with a sense of care and a sense of curiosity, what more they might have to reveal for us. So I think that I found that description of the holding environment to be really helpful in kind of encapsulating all the different methods for holding space within our bodies and minds to see more of our emotions, more of ourselves. And then in doing that, it becomes a practice of empathy and compassion, not only for ourselves, but others too. The more that we see, kind of like that note card story I told about at the beginning, the more that we see our own patterns of thought and feeling, then it opens up more space to see others too, I think, with more curiosity and care. So there's another piece of this that I thought of as I was listening to Nikki that's become relevant for me in right now in fields of neuroscience and cognitive psychology. There's a lot of interest and emphasis on what's called the predictive mind, that are the way that this is a view of the way that the brain works, is that we're not just constantly reacting to some stimulus, but our minds are constantly trying to anticipate what's going to come next. And so I think this snaps onto some of what Nikki was describing, like we're constantly doing. We're constantly striving, constantly trying to analyze and try to figure things out, because the mind is trying to make sense of its environment and protect the body and prepare us for action. So even though we're not even aware of it, as we're leaving from one meeting or work event and moving into a new room, even if we're not aware of it, our brain is trying to anticipate what's coming next. And that can be a huge source of stress if we're constantly sort of projecting out into the future, worried about what's coming. So contemplative practices that provide a holding environment or a sense of rest or sense of safety can, I think, be really restorative or healing, because it's giving that predictive mind, or that sort of watch guard of the mind, a chance to rest, to set down its sort of defenses and vigilance and rest. And that can be really restorative and healing for the body. So I think I'm just sort of giving some expression to, I think, some things that Nikki was describing with a little bit of help from some psychological theory. This also makes a lot of sense from attachment theory lens that I talked about earlier, where the predictions that our mind might be making are based on earlier experiences of relationship that may or may not have been good. We might have had some, and all of us, I think from an attachment theory perspective, it's not just that we have one kind of attachment experience that's dictating everything, but all of us have a whole hierarchy or web of social experiences from our parents, from our siblings, from our extended family, from our peers as children and as adolescents, from teachers and mentors and so forth, from our coworkers and organizations. So these sort of multiple traces of relationality get embedded in us and then become kind of like, you could say they become our predictions, or they become our mental models of the world that we get identified with and react to. And for many of us, they might not feel safe, or they might feel threatening. So that speaks to a third piece of what I thought of in listening to Nikki, is that what so many of us are seeking and what we need is a feeling of safety and a feeling of care, so that we can become more present to our own emotional patterns as well as emotional patterns of others, without becoming overwhelmed, without becoming so quickly reactive to our thoughts and emotions. We need that sort of, and I really love the metaphor, Nikki, that you used of sort of like holding a baby with a sense of real gentle care, and just letting, not forcing anything to happen, but really letting the baby to settle in its own way and in its own time. So a feeling of safety or care that supports that. And from an evolutionary standpoint, I recently read a book by Michael Tomasello, who's a developmental psychologist, and he talked a lot about humans being able to take more risk when we're in social connection. So when we have support from others, we're better able to navigate the environment and take risk. For example, to go hunt for food, we can seek a bigger reward when we're embedded in a positive social connection. So I think similarly with meditative practices, like when we have a sense of connection with others, like with a sangha, a community of other practitioners, as well as supportive guides, so other teachers or mature practitioners, when we feel some sense of support and safety with that context, it gives us greater psychological resource to accomplish exactly what Nikki was describing, an ability to be present to our emotions with a sense of calm and curiosity and care. And by being present to our own selves in that way, we're then becoming present to our larger culture, to our ancestors, to our kin, and so forth.
Beautiful. Thank you, Paul. And I, this sense of creating a holding environment, and the beautiful metaphor that Nikki gave us. And, Tenzin Wangyal Rinpoche calls it hosting, right? And what I love is, so from us hosting, but also how do we feel hosted? And Paul, you mentioned kind of this, right? The spiritual host, which could be our lineage, could be our ancestors, could be the space we're in. That's why we go to places of retreat, that we feel hosted, right? We feel it is a holding environment where we can be ourselves. We can take that mask or whatever we do, that identity, as Rinpoche would call it, that pain identity that we carry many times, because we need to show ourselves as, well, I'm this person, right? In particularly in our jobs, but also in our society, right? We almost walk with that, and it's very different when we let that go. Um, and and so I don't know if you want to go there, Paul, uh, but something that that I, and again, you can drop it if this is not something that makes sense. But I was wondering, as you were in Nepal in Ranjung Yeshe, if there were things that you noticed, well, from your coming from psychology and from the US and all these important theories, but you get there and you're teaching there from a different perspective. Does the environment, is the holding environment different? Does the, does that make any shifts in the way that you approach? Did it make shifts to you, and did it make shifts in that relationship? And if it doesn't make sense, you can delete it.
Yeah. Actually, I think absolutely. I think I mean, this is why we go on retreat, as you said. Exactly, this is why we will put forth a lot of effort to travel to a space or environment that is restorative and healing. I think the social setting, so this is a huge part of social psychology, that the social setting and environment shapes the way that our mind is. And our mind isn't just what's happening in the brain, but it's also the way that our whole entire psychophysical system is embedded in a greater environment and culture. And also that includes history, so that when we're in a place that has a history of contemplative practice, we can, like, our bodies can really resonate and tune in and feel that. There was a concept I learned about in psychology called implicit relational knowing, and I think this is an attachment theory idea. Implicit relational knowing, that we learn ways of being in relationship to each other implicitly early on in our life. So when we enter into contemplative spaces, whether it's a retreat center or even an entire culture or society that is carrying contemplative traditions, it's almost as if our bodies can become imprinted by those settings. We sort of scaffold on the social environment of those settings that then become a resource for us, that can actually become a resource for our contemplative practice, or for just being. Like, those memories become imprinted into us within our bodies and minds, and as if they're now part of us, and those memories can carry forward and continue to kind of help support that holding environment that we've been talking about. So when I teach meditation, one goal that we have with trying to teach meditation is often helping people to discover moments of care from their life. Could be a moment of interaction with another person, or call to mind a benefactor, a being who, like a teacher or a being who embodies deep care and wisdom. But that could also include memories of being in a physical space, whether that's a retreat center or another culture where it feels deeply supporting and healing for creating that holding environment. So then the holding environment isn't just being kind of generated from scratch on our own, but is actually being re-inhabited or re-experienced by visualizing being there in these spaces. So I think that your question is, I think it's really on point in terms of what are the resources that are supportive or needed for helping us to access these inner qualities of peace and awareness that are not susceptible to burnout.
Wonderful. Thank you. Do you have any source in terms of, I love this and I don't know enough of this, I don't know anything of this, implicit relational knowing? Is there any, any author, any that you would direct me and others to?
Yeah, there's a book called Raising a Secure Child, which is it's a book for a general audience on attachment theory and raising children. So it's a very practical guide in terms of strategies for raising children. But within that book, there's references to that concept of implicit relational knowing, as well as some academic papers that explore that concept.
Thank you. Thank you, Paul. Nikki, I was thinking AI and, on one hand, I feel AI is driving us totally not to rest, right? Is driving on one hand in a total different place. But I was also thinking, can there be an AI silent environment? Can there be an AI supporting environment? Can we create an AI, I was talking earlier about virtual reality, but I don't know. Is there any support, or do you, being an AI expert, do we hear mostly all the drama where AI is taking us into you know, um, its own chaos. So uh, maybe bring us some positivity there.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Thanks, Ali. Um, yeah, what you're bringing in is really the dystopian uh, versus the utopian view of AI. And there are different camps, and there are different people who think we should slow down or speed up depending on which view they have. And I think it's both. It's all of the above. It's the yes and of the extreme. So yes, um, and um, and also I want to connect with this what you asked with something that Paul mentioned, which I really appreciate when he was talking about the brain being this predictive analysis machine, which is what AI does, by the way. It's basic as a predictive system that you feed it a lot of data and it's trying to predict the next the next piece based on, it's a pattern recognition system based on all the data that you've given it. And yet, coming back to connecting this with the impact of artificial intelligence systems that we have, and let's not even talk about AGI, general intelligence. We don't know even if that's even possible. That's really theoretical. But with the systems that we have, which are part of narrow AI, say ChatGPT and Siri and the various recommendation systems, etc. So there is a proliferation of information. There is so much information that's being distributed, and part of that is AI, and part of that is social media, which again relies on AI to decide what to show you and pushes it onto you indiscriminately, and or decides, what you say the recommendation systems, what movies and TV shows you should be seeing, and lists them all. And oh yeah, they all seem compelling in some way. So we're being bombarded. We're being bombarded by what by predictive systems that are artificial, that are predictive systems. Kind of like it appeals to our predictive systems and want to and leads us on. So it becomes that too muchness, and then also with our capacity, with our tendencies as human beings to as Paul was beautifully pointing out, this sense of wanting to predict, wanting to keep ourselves safe and keep predicting the environment. um so so I'm bringing lots of threads here. So I'll get back to all of them. Lots of different threads. So with that, yes, in some ways, the technology is making us more overwhelmed, and yet again, it is partly our choice because we need to be more wise about it. But our use, our wise and compassionate use of technology, and yet it's out there. We're going to be bombarded. And yet, coming back to the other aspect of your question about, um, yeah, could there be actually utopian vision of how AI can support us? Of course, there can be. Um, and that really depends on us as a society, as designers, as society that also creates the reward structures for systems to support us human beings to do less or to be or take time away from screens and doing and predicting. And of course, systems could be designed to support and create and um, these holding, um, these kind, caring, um, holding spaces, as Paul beautifully was bringing in from psychological research and attachment theory. Can it help us create those for ourselves? Of course it can. Of course it can. But do we, if for example, if we have systems that are doing our planning and the various work in our house and our jobs, then do we overwhelm ourselves more with more information, or do we actually choose to take that pause and rest? So a lot of this is where really our spiritual practice, our own wisdom and compassion comes in. The tools are available for either destroying ourselves or supporting ourselves. What do we as human beings, what do we choose to do? What do we choose to design as designers? What do we choose to use and employ as users? And how do we choose to engage? So a lot of that choice really rests with us human beings. AI is not that intelligent, really. It's kind of dumb at this point still. So, and another thing I wanted to also bring in along this thread is we've mentioned um, retreats and really taking time away to recover and restore if there is exhaustion and burnout. And I definitely don't want to give our listeners the sense of that's the only way. Yes, if you can do retreats, if we can do take an extended period of time off, yes, fantastic, great. And yet, we don't necessarily have to go somewhere. Can we carve that time and that space, that holding space for ourselves where we are, wherever we might be? If we don't have the finances or the ability or if we have obligations to our family, we cannot actually physically get away and and also even lowering the bar a little more, even though it's wonderful to have an extended period of time for downtime to be fully restorative. Yet, as I was saying, can we go to bed early? Is it possible to just go to bed and stay in bed for 12 hours? Just do nothing. Just have darkness, and there are studies about darkness. And anyway, can we just have dark, just being dark and just be, just maybe listen to a few guided meditations with care and self-compassion. There are plenty of them out there. Can we do that? And can we, and again, now lowering the bar even a little more, can we fit in 15 or 30-minute complete breaks where we're just resting, we're doing deep rest, not trying to run from one thing to another, but maybe again listening to a guided meditation. And the reason why I'm suggesting listening to a guided meditation is um is sometimes for some folks doing meditation on our own can become a grim duty. Oh, I need to concentrate. I need to meditate. It becomes a doing. So, so we can offer it to another person's voice, another person who's already recorded it. We can just let go and listen and let them guide us. Let them guide us to a place of kindness, compassion, care, holding ourselves, so that there's no doing. And if our minds get distracted or we fall asleep, fine, sweetheart. That's exactly what you needed. That's fine. So letting there be that care. But in for my own practice, I've seen that if I have a really, really busy day, like in the Pomodoro method, if I'm working for 25 minutes and really intense, and then I take a 10 or 15-minute break and just go lie down, listen to a guided meditation. Wow, I'm so much more refreshed, and it really supports my exhaustion and overwhelm. I share this as a practitioner, not just as a teacher.
Beautiful. And I, uh, the listeners might join if you want. In so I'm gonna, now that we are at the end of the year, and I was telling Paul, luckily we get from the 22nd till the 1st off. And I'm going to make sure that during that time, I'll have 12 hours in darkness. So I'll take that. And anyone who wants to join me, please, put that as one of the things. So I wanted, Nikki, if you can guide us in a short practice, um, uh, supporting what we've been discussing, or actually
Yeah.
what we've not been discussing, resting.
Ah, thank you, Ali. I'd be delighted to. I'd be delighted to. So, maybe a short meditation, somewhere between 5 and 10 minutes, I'll offer. So, I'd like to invite us all to settle whatever our body posture is right now, whether you're sitting, standing, lying down. Come to rest for a moment. And inviting your body to offer its weight. The chair, to the cushion, to the earth. Let's begin by taking 3 deep diaphragmatic breaths where we breathe in through our nose, hold the breath for a few seconds, and then breathe out through our mouth. Let's do that together. Maybe breathing out through pursed lips so that the out breath gets elongated. Another time. Like a few more of these long breaths, you're welcome to, or you can come back to the natural breath. Let the breath be exactly as it is. And let your body relax. Relax, relaxing your shoulders, relaxing your neck, relaxing your face, your forehead. Let your eyes rest in their socket. Relaxing the jaw, relaxing the muscles behind the face, cheeks, all the little muscles everywhere in the face. Inviting the chest to relax, brushing our upper back, mid back, and lower back with our awareness, with our kind awareness, ever so gently and kindly, inviting them to relax. Brushing our chest again with our awareness. And allowing our heart to rest. And our heart center, the proverbial heart center, the middle of the chest, where we associate with our emotions. Let our emotions be just as they are. Safe, okay, they can be just as they are. Giving them a lot of space. Breathing with them, around them. Kindness, patience. Gently brushing our lower diaphragm or belly with our kind awareness. Simply knowing that the breath is being breathed, it's moving in and out. Nothing to do, nowhere to go right now. But to simply be and receive the miracle of this breath. The abdomen. The breath is breathing itself, is breathing us. There's no doing to be done, simply know. Relax and receive the breath, just as it is. And moving down, gently brushing our sit bones, especially if they're contacting a chair or a cushion, the contact points. With our kind awareness, the tingling, the pressure, offering our weight, the weight of our upper body to the chair, the cushion, the weight of our upper legs, our knees, our lower legs, our calves, our feet to the earth, releasing, releasing the whole body, releasing the whole body. Allowing the body to be as relaxed as possible. And with the next out breath, sinking half an inch deeper into our chair, into the earth. Breathing out through pursed lips if possible. And we'll spend the last couple of minutes in silence, receiving the breath and holding ourselves with kindness, with care and patience, as if we were holding a little baby. That is us. There, sweetheart. It's okay. And when you feel ready, letting there be an enjoyment of the inhale, bringing in energy, bringing brightness into this body, this mind, this heart. With gratitude and appreciation for being alive in this moment, however it is, however it's showing up in this body, in this heart, in this mind, internally in our world, in this world, and externally in the world, just as it is. And when you're ready, opening your eyes, coming back to the shared space.
Thank you, Nikki. Beautiful, beautiful. So as we conclude, I don't know if Paul or Nikki, do you want to, are there any other last things that you wanted to
Paul, you.
share?
Oh, I was just going to ask Paul to go first if he wanted to.
Just thank you both. Thank you, Ale and Nikki, for your presence and conversation. It's great to be here with you.
Thank you, Paul. Thank you. It's been great to have you with you, Nikki, as well. And also, I want to say that people don't see behind us, but Milos has been hosting us, talking about hosting, and Polly and so many others are behind what we do. So thank you, everyone. And I'll announce a couple of things, but maybe Nikki wanted to say something.
Yeah, thank you, Ali, and thank you, Paul, also, and Milos as well for hosting, and everyone in the background, everyone who's been doing so much to make this possible, and especially on this topic at this time. What a wonderful topic. Thank you, Ali, for the invitation. Delighted to have been able to make an offering today. May it be of service.
Yes, thank you. And I wanted to, I mean, it is the end of the year, and you mentioned how, for many people there's joy, for many it's difficult. So may you find ways of support, whether there are, take a retreat or all the other options that you gave. And amongst those, our Cyber Sangha programs may be also places to support. Rinpoche on December 23rd will be at noon, New York time, will be talking and teaching and practicing on embracing apathy and cultivating joyful engagement. And then the 26th, it's our full moon, which we start in the morning at 10 a.m. New York time, and we go all the way till the next day, and we rotate who's leading from all over the world. And so again, these are free and open to all. And as we start January, it's going to be on embracing the suffering me and the cultivating the freedom of being no one. And that will be the topic also of our next Cyber Sangha dialogue. So with that, thank you, everyone. May you have a great end of the year, beginning of the new year. Nikki, Paul, thank you. Bow to you, Milos, Polly, and everyone. Thank you. And also let you know that this is recorded, so you can watch it and take more notes, mostly hard notes. Thank you.
Thank you for listening to the Cyber Sangha podcast. If you'd like to learn more about Cyber Sangha, visit us online at cybersangha.net.